delighted to come over and speak to a group which consists of Jewish residents on the island, Christians, people from different faiths and no faith, all of whom who want to build a strong relationship between the Isle of Man and Israel.
I know one of the main topics you were keen to speak about was anti-Semitism. Was that the main topic that was discussed, or were there other issues as well?
Well, very sadly, it is a big news item at the moment, a huge cause of concern and apprehension within the Jewish community and amongst friends of the Jewish community as well. We're seeing a rise of anti-Semitic incidents across the UK, across Europe, in fact, and it is therefore a topic that we had to address. But there's all sorts of positive issues and positive matters as well about, in particular, the Isle of Man and its relationship with Israel, which is a small country quite far away. But it is amazing the various links that there are culturally, in terms of faith groups going to visit Israel, in terms of investment and jobs. So there's all sorts of positive things to talk about as well.
Is anti-Semitism something that sometimes gets overlooked?
It can do. I mean, it is a form of racism, and it's a virulent form of racism, which has sadly been around for a very long time. And it's a murderous form of racism because only 70 years ago, a third of the Jewish people were actually murdered as part of the Holocaust. So it can be overlooked because I think people regard the Jewish community, certainly in the UK and the Jewish residents here on the island as well, as being very much part of the local society, of the local community, very well integrated, contributing, and therefore that they should be the target of racism isn't always immediately apparent, but it's coming more and more to the fore in social media and sadly even seeping into the mainstream of political life in the UK.
Is there a big issue with anti-Semitism on the island?
Well, I've spoken to a number of Jewish residents about it, and all of them say that the Isle of Man is a welcoming and tolerant society. But there are undercurrents of it everywhere, and indeed it exists, I'm sure, on the island as well. It can come in different forms. Anti-Semitism can be a snide remark. It can be a what some people might see as a joke, but actually is quite offensive. So it comes in different shapes and forms. But I think the bottom line here is that for Jewish people, as I understand it, speaking with them, that they regard the Isle of Man as their home, that they've contributed here to the local community and society, and they feel very much part of it.
Do you think there needs to be more education around this issue?
I think totally, very much so. I think we're finding that issues like, for instance, the Holocaust, that there are many people who just don't know what the Holocaust is, have a very vague idea, and we're reaching a stage where many of the survivors of the Holocaust are sadly passing away. So we need to reach that younger generation in particular, which perhaps are unaware of the events around that, and if they are aware, think of it as something purely historical, whereas unfortunately this idea of Jew hatred hasn't gone away, it's still here, and therefore education, I think, is vital.
One of the topics you've been talking about this weekend is Christians and Jews standing together. How important is it for people from different backgrounds, from different faiths, to find common ground?
In today's world, it's hugely important. Coming from Northern Ireland, where religion was often seen as the heart of conflict, the Arab-Israel conflict is also seen as Jews versus Muslims. Religion always seems to be a cause of conflict. Therefore, I think it's hugely important that people of different faiths come to know each other, to understand each other, to come to positive engagement. I think it's one of the biggest challenges of our time.
What advice would you give to someone who is dealing with anti-Semitism?
As a victim of it, I think they need to speak out and they need to report it to the authorities. I think this is very, very important. So much of it goes unreported. We have an organisation called the Community Security Trust. Now, this is a Jewish community organisation which is dedicated to monitoring anti-Semitism and combating it. And anyone who's experiencing it should certainly contact the Community Security Trust, both so that the instance of anti-Semitism is recorded and also that they can offer support to anyone who's a victim of anti-Semitism.